Hey everyone, my name is Jason Mellard. I am a writer, high performance coach, and the founder of Own Your Identity. I'm committed to empowering men to live beyond their unwanted same sex attractions and into their purpose through the power of Christ and for the glory of God. I am so glad that you are inviting me into your life today, and I would like to share my story with you. If you can relate to it, I pray that it will help you to feel less alone and more empowered in your journey. If you can't relate to it, feel free to set it aside. As I share my story, I'm going to break it up into three buckets. The first being the feeling and belief of separateness that I felt in my life. The second were the physical arousals and sensations and romantic feelings that developed towards other guys. The third bucket are the responses that I had towards those things. Mixed in, I'll talk about my own attempts to solve that problem of separateness in my life. And finally, describe surrendering to God as the only one that can solve that problem and unite me in Him and with my true self in oneness. When I was a kid, I felt very separate from my masculinity, from my strength, power, my body, from my father, from other men, from the belief that I had what it takes to make it in life. I felt very alone. I was abused by my father emotionally, physically, and sexually, and I do believe that that contributed to a disconnection between who I really was and the perception of who I was. I didn't believe that what I said had weight, that my emotions were right to have or to share, that what it seemed to be true to me, I was being told was a lie. Those caused a lot of confusion in me. I'll give you a rated G example of an interaction with my dad, and the pattern was that he didn't see me. I wasn't feeling empowered or connected to him. We went to go on a bike ride. I thought it was going to be a great time for us to connect and go on a bike ride together. I didn't, feel very comfortable around my dad, but I did like the idea of, okay, this might be an opportunity to connect. He got me into some bike shorts and a helmet and a bike that was really too big for me. But when we'd go out on a ride, he wanted to make sure he got his exercise in, and he ended up being probably at least 30 feet ahead of me for most of the ride. I was so confused because I thought this was something that we were doing together, but that was not the case. And I also thought, well, he keeps looking back saying, come on, am I supposed to be able to go as fast as him? Am I supposed to be able to catch up to him? I tried really hard at different times, and then I would finally kind of give up and just go at a regular pace and just watch him continue to get further away. Eventually he would stop and allow me to kind of catch up, but before I completely got to him, he would take off again. And it made me think that he didn't really want to be with me, that he didn't see me as strong enough, that I had this thing of masculinity, of connection with my father, of strength and power that I wasn't living up to. And I wanted to so bad, but it just didn't happen. And I really began to believe that something was wrong with me. I looked outside of myself for what the answer was. I thought, well, if I'm not enough, if I'm not good enough, and I don't have what it takes to make it in life, I need somebody else to tell me what that is. And I thought, well, if I could be a guy that really looks confident, then I could maybe feel confident about myself. I began to study other guys. I didn't really relate to them, and I wanted to be a strong man. So I would copy how another guy looked or talked or how they interacted with other people in a social setting. I would follow their confident lead and really try to craft this, I call it a fragile shell of an identity around me, including masculinity and anything else that I could have to feel like I was going to be okay and that everything was going to be okay, to get the approval of other people and to get a sense that I was acceptable in other people's eyes. My daughters recently have connected with their grandmother by creating blown eggs. So what that is you take an egg, you poke a hole in each end and blow out the yolk and the whites through the egg, and you paint it, and it looks really pretty. You put it on a pedestal and make sure nobody knocks it over, and it's beautiful. that's kind of what I was crafting around myself. It was this really fragile shell that was empty inside. And I was trying so hard to mirror what I thought people wanted to see from me. I would get a compliment and, just go that direction because I wanted more compliments. And man, it really didn't work long term. I remember my senior year of high school, I was at a party and I was having a conversation with a guy. Further into the conversation, he looked at me and said that he wanted to kiss me. Wow. I had never experienced the feeling that came up after that. Everything just faded to gray, and our interaction was technicolor. I didn't know what to do with that feeling. It was like electricity that came through my body. And I thought, this is an answer to what I've been searching for, this deep connection with another guy. I didn't really put all of that together, honestly, until I had a second experience of that in college, my freshman year. I went off to college. It was very overwhelming. There were, more than 40,000 people in this huge public university, and there were so many people that I had to please and mirror and try to figure out what they expected of me. It was exhausting, and I was scared and anxious most of the time. My fine arts class that I was in, when the professor was going to describe our final project, I was in the midst of this really scared feeling. And I remember looking at another guy thinking, he doesn't seem scared. He seems pretty comfortable. He's kind of not even looking or paying that much attention to the professor. He must think that, okay, I've got this. Let's, just finish this conversation so I can get started on the project. I thought, if he could be my friend, then I wouldn't have to feel so alone. If I had his confidence and strength, then maybe I could handle anything, and maybe I wouldn't feel this scared. As I was looking at him, that feeling of electricity came up again. Ooh, I didn't know what that was, and it was bigger this time, and it was just more pervasive. It turns out that he was somebody that identified as gay, just my luck. He invited me later to dinner with his friend, and just to talk. I went to dinner with them, and they told me that I was gay. Wow, I didn't know quite what to make of that. I never thought of myself that way. I just thought of myself as a person that was trying to make it in life and trying to figure out what it meant to be a man. But they suggested this label or this identity. And, I was taken aback and offended at first. As I've thought more about that conversation, I really think they were trying to help me, because I think it was probably pretty obvious that I was just faking it in life, that I didn't really have a solid sense of who I was, and, wasn't walking through the world that way. I think they were probably pretty aware that I had this thin shell around me, and maybe what they thought was that the thing that was missing was, really a unity with this homosexuality identity. That wasn't the case in reality. That's not what it was that was missing. I didn't know that at the time. It was just all a big mess. I was feeling so many different emotions and feelings. I didn't know what to think. I had a hard time thinking straight. So I really did think about it. I didn't know what to do with it. I actually didn't want to be gay. I wanted to be married to a woman and have a family with her. I really admired what I believed the Bible talked about when it described a man and a woman being created separately and uniquely, and then coming together in a way that was just really special. So people have different opinions about interpretations of the Bible, but for me that really rang true, and I really liked it. I just liked the whole idea of it. I didn't know what to do with my desires that were in conflict, but I didn't have to spend a whole lot of time trying to figure that out, because the idea of moving into those attractions and acting on them didn't really fit into my identity that I had been creating for many, many years as the perfect Christian and somebody that is always doing the right thing. The fear of that shell breaking was a lot bigger than any benefit I felt like I could get from going into the gay lifestyle. So I didn't go into the lifestyle at that point, and I haven't acted out physically with another guy. That's just part of my story. I have done other things like look at pornography many times, and that was an attempt, to fix that feeling of separation on my own. I did believe that my whole body maybe was trying to help me out in connecting with guys, whether it was virtually on the screen or in person, this sense that it was going to be the solution to my separateness problem, to not feeling like I had what it takes to be a man. If I could truly connect and be like one of these other guys that I would see and admire, then I believe, and this is my take it if you like it, and leave it if you don't, but that my thoughts and emotions and physical sensations, my sexual drive, were really all trying to help me out so that I could fully connect with another guy and not have to wonder and think that question that was bugging me every day, all the time: do I have what it takes to be a man? That question was exhausting to try and answer. And I think that it just seemed like that question would be answered once and for all if I really was intimate with another man. I felt that way. But I also had a sense that it was going to take me somewhere that I didn't know how to get back from. I really didn't believe that that was the thing that was missing inside of me. I also believe that a contributor to that feeling of electricity that has come up with guys is that when in puberty, guys were kind of getting bored with each other and their heads were turning to women that were coming into their femininity. When all their chemicals changed in puberty, they got connected to the female image. Well, I was still really obsessed about guys, trying to figure that out. And when things changed in my body, I believe that it kind of got connected that way. So that's one of my thoughts that seems to be true for me as well. But when I think about going into pornography, that was kind of safer than doing something with somebody else. I was somehow able to make that work in my self-image. I'd kept that to myself. I was looking at these guys and I felt powerful when I was watching these images. It was really just pixels on a screen. I don't know where those people were in real life. I didn't know them, but I had kind of a mirroring of their emotions and their sensations that they had. And I felt like all the anxiety and fear that I was experiencing just went away while I was engaging in pornography. And I didn't have to try to wonder, I could just be so focused on what I was looking at. And this just sense of purpose really came over me. I don't know if you've heard that chemical dopamine that gets released when you're looking at pornography. They used to call it a pleasure chemical, but really it's more of a purpose chemical. You feel like you're really engaged in something. Obviously, I wasn't engaged in anything very productive. I've learned a lot better ways to channel that energy that I really prefer more and I feel like have a better outcome. One evening I was walking across campus at night. It was very peaceful. The weather was cool and calm, and I was in this large field alone. I had my journal with me. I had decided I was going to write down everything there was that was unique to me. The things I enjoyed the most, the things that made me really unique and special, that I had as dreams for the future. I was going to write it all down so I could hold on to it tightly. I felt like the things that were really mine and who I was, I didn't have a great sense of ownership of. There weren't people around that I had to try and please or mirror or worry about what they thought of me. I looked up at the stars, said a little prayer, and wrote all of those things down, and it was good. I wish I still had that journal. I'd be curious to see exactly what I had written that night. But the next morning when I woke up and went to school, reality just hit me in the face again. And somehow I lost the sense of those things on my list, and I went back to living for that shell that I had built around me. And I did that for so long until towards the end of college, I ended up in the emergency room because I just had a nervous breakdown. I couldn't hold on so tightly to life and try to control and avoid these really scary feelings and thoughts, not just about same-sex attraction, but fear and shame and judgment and worry about the future, just everything, loneliness. I couldn't do it anymore on my own. That led me to reach out to counselors and different recovery programs that were very helpful to me. It took a while to get to a place where I was open to share. There was one mentor who really was the face of Jesus in my life, and I first really remember experiencing love and being loved by God when I was in discussion with him. I always had thought that God was distant. I, overlaid my father's face onto God, and I thought, okay, he's not really that proud of me. And if he can really help me and he can make my life, feel better and more integrated, he's not going to. I have to just figure all this life stuff out on my own. But I began to learn that, God is a really good God, and he is best. He doesn't just know what's best, but he really is best. And the more I gained some healing from depression and anxiety, the more I felt grounded in life. So much so that I was ready then to take a more direct look at my same-sex attractions and to learn from them. I got some support around me, and I really decided that I wanted to take a closer look. But, before that, I do remember believing that marriage maybe wasn't for me. I was scared when it came to dating, and the idea of marrying a woman was scary. I liked the idea of it, but I didn't even want to kiss a girl. So I wanted to just decide that I wasn't going to get married. That was a lot easier to me than keeping an open hand for the possibility of it. If I could just not have to worry about it anymore or think, is this possible or not? Can I handle that, or am I man enough for it? I just didn't like having to ask all those questions all the time. And just like the question, do I have what it takes to be a man? It was really exhausting to ask those so often. But I didn't believe for me in that moment that was the right thing to do. I mean, everybody's got their own story. For me, it made me feel closed up, and I really did want an open posture just to enjoy life more in the present. I entered into a support group for folks that were experiencing same-sex attraction and wanted to go in a different direction than those attractions. It was so freeing to walk into the doors of that room for the first time and know that I was not alone. And these people really got me. I didn't have to explain all the experiences that I was having. And I really felt God's presence there. The ministry was focused on Christ and knowing him more. It wasn't about, changing our attractions from men to women. It was about continuing to be open to learn more about how he created us and to grow in deeper relationship with him and to have each other support each other and have our backs. I really enjoyed it. I was there for several years, and I led groups in that ministry. And then one day, a girl walked in during worship, and for the first time, my head turned towards a girl, like I'd seen it other guys do. Wow, I hadn't experienced that in that way before. I had seen her before, but she was kind of always on the back row. And this time, her hair was done up differently. She was straight from work in really nice clothes. Man, I wanted to know this person. I wanted to get to know her more. I had this just desire that came up out of me. I'm really blessed to have this as a part of my story. It's not something that was a requirement, for me. I'd really gotten to the place where I was okay with whatever God had. And I desired a relationship with him and a deeper understanding of who he is and who I am in him above all. I think that the reason we're here is to know him more and to make him known. And that's what I wanted to put first in my life. But I was really blessed to be able to have this experience where I did want to date this woman, and I knocked on her door the first time, and I had those feelings of butterflies inside of me. And we've been able to really enjoy a great relationship. We have 3 kids. We've been married for 13 years, and I'm so blessed to have this experience in my life. But like I said, it was really surrendering to God. That was the biggest game changer for me. If you haven't put your love and trust in Christ Jesus, I would invite you to do so. It really is going to be the best experience for you, and it's going to open so many doors. I hope you enjoyed my story here today, and I look forward to unpacking it more in future episodes. But I do want to leave you with a tool that I've created. It's called SSAquiz.com. And really, it's just to create more awareness on how you may be allowing your unwanted same-sex attractions to hold you back. For me, I didn't understand how big of an impact they were really making in my life. I talked in episode 1 about how fear, shame, and judgment had created this wall that I couldn't see past. When I got a little bit more clarity on how it was impacting me and affecting me, I was able to take more steps towards growth in those areas in a more empowered way. So feel free to check that out. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you again for allowing me to speak with you today. Have a great night.